So today we have another speaker chat. We have Sonya Barlow, who is the founder of Like-Minded Females. Sonya, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
That's okay. So Sonya, tell us more about you, yourself. Tell us more about Like-Minded Females and what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you for that. So long story short, in 2015, I graduated and fell into the world of tech. I got to about 2018 and realized there weren't a lot of women that looked like me, and there just weren't a lot of conversations happening around how to progress and how to move forward, and even how to like negotiate pay, for an example. I was based in London, and the average kind of networking event in London was more than £50. But as a fresh grad, and as someone who's quite junior who just wanted a sense of community, I thought that was more than I could afford. So out of pure frustration, I decided to create a brunch club overnight. So we called it Like-Minded Females, and it was all to, initially it was to bring women together in tech to have brunch and to talk about, you know, career and life and progression. Ironically, no one actually showed up to brunch. So that's our kind of like fun fact, is no one actually showed up to 3 brunches. But what it did make me realize was, one, the power of personal branding and how important it was to put yourself out there so people believe in your mission, your vision. I'd only reactivated my LinkedIn at that point. And so, you know, why would people come to a brunch via me if they didn't really know who I was? And two, it really did confirm that especially women or minoritized groups were looking for this kind of community. But what they were hesitant of is coming to another community where they were just venting. They wanted something action-led and something impactful. And so kind of staying resilient and not being afraid of the initial failure that was made, I carried on, and the branches evolved to workshops. And within 6 months, we had corporates getting in touch saying, we've seen online that you're building this community organically. We'd love it if you could come internally and you know, educate us and train us on how we can do that and create more inclusive cultures.
To say it's all about being resilient and actually learning. And actually, you know, we're not failures, but we learn from our mistakes. And everybody's human at the end of the day. We have to start somewhere. And for me, it's a massive achievement that I'm now in my 3rd year of the Success Conference. It's growing, it's expanding, and it's not easy. Absolutely, it's not easy. But you know, it's all about being resilient and building your personal brand, which is so important, and kind of believing in yourself. And you do have ups and downs. That's the beauty of it. So talking about diversity and inclusion as a broader topic, why do you feel that's important?
I think it's important because representation definitely does matter. How can we be in a position where we are creating products and services for the global market and yet not having the global market being represented in those conversations? I know, for example, in most of the jobs that I've worked in throughout kind of my part-time university experience in retail, how can we position ourselves to sell or to be the best marketplace or the best product for a diverse group of people if we've never included them in the conversations to start with? You know, working in or kind of being in the workplace, how can you as an employer deliver a social event that is all based around alcohol and staying out in the night and getting home really late when your people are carers or commuters or non-drinkers, right? So diversity inclusion for me, really briefly, is allowing everyone to show up as their best authentic selves and succeeding. And that's what I found working in technology over the few years that I've never been able to do. I've either had to conform to be kind of, you know, change my accent or change my background or my thinking or say yes to things that I don't necessarily agree with. I was commuting 2 hours a day for one job, and my employer, despite kind of sharing a doctor's note about, you know, mental health issues, they were like, no, we need you to come in every day and sit in the desk next to us and work from here. But I didn't have a client or a project. So for me, diversity inclusion is about helping to build equity and making sure that we are transforming the working culture so that it's accessible for everyone and accessible so that they can allow progression. And the final reason, it's because role models are very important. When I was growing up, if we're talking about you know, race and challenging conversations here, when I was a young child and I grew up in West London, everyone who made it was white or lighter skin colored, for example. So for me, I grew up wanting to, have blonde hair and blue eyes and a white complexion, because I was like, that's how the businesswomen are. That's how you make it. That's how you get in front of the TV or on the front covers. And there weren't a lot of kind of brown-skinned women that looked like me who were thriving. And so for me, diversity inclusion as a broader term is really important, so that we can go back and reflect the opportunities that we maybe didn't have, but allow the accessibility and the doors to open by becoming really resilient and very determined allies. And that's why D&I is important.
Absolutely so. And you're right. I mean, for example, COVID has shown that everybody can actually work from home. It doesn't work for everybody, absolutely not. And that's again where the diversity or the accessibility comes in. That you have to have that balance of either creating that working environment at home for people who are comfortable working from home, but equally allowing people to come into the office if that's what they need. Because everybody has different needs, don't they? And every different human beings. And some of us can't work from home. Some of us enjoy the hustle and bustle of the office. Some of us actually just quite like hiding behind at home and the head down and doing our work. So everybody's at their kind of different stage in it. And lockdown has really shown that you actually can adapt really quickly when you need to. The whole country stopped in 24 hours and adapted to working from home. If that can be done in 24 hours, then other things can be done quickly. So it's about creating that accessible environment, as you say, to everybody, and giving that opportunity to everybody as well, and hearing that voice. So obviously you are speaking and running the women's session at This Is Us conference, and about imposter syndrome and Gen Z and millennials. So tell us a little bit more about what are you talking about, but of course don't give too many secrets away.
To be honest, I wanted the women's section to reflect the everyday topics and themes that we go through. For me, I am like a peak millennial, but really the market isn't for us in the same way that it used to be. We have to think about who are the future leaders and who are the future change makers, and how are we addressing them, and what are the kind of communications that we are placing, and what is the content that we are sharing outside. So from a Gen Z perspective, it had to be really relevant. It had to be digital. It had to be focusing on exactly what we've spoken about before, allowing our resources, our tools, our initiatives to open the doors for them, especially when their life is so value-based and so skills-based and experience-based, right? It's making sure that we are providing the initiatives so that they can enter into the workplace and they can thrive. From a woman perspective, confidence and imposter syndrome is something that I receive 100 messages or so a week around, to the point where now I do coaching around it, or I build out workshops, and I lead and facilitate how we can become more confident in ourselves, and most importantly, how we can get over this. And I mean to say get over kind of the imposter syndrome that sits within us. I have to say, for the last few months, I haven't felt like an imposter, because I know what my strengths are, I know what my skills are, and ultimately I know what I'm doing. And so it's about understanding where your value is, and going back to that whole element where we started with personal branding. Personal branding is not just, hey, post a little pretty picture online. Personal branding is what makes you you. What is your mission, your vision, your values? What are your drivers? How are you addressing that every day in your life? What is your life's purpose? And are you living that every day? And if you are, you're not going to feel like an imposter. If anything, you're going to show up to work every day super happy. You're going to want to work longer hours, or and I don't mean long hours that it affects your wellness or your mental health, but more in line with, you're going to want to put everything you can into this to make it grow.
Absolutely, that's so important. And they do say that women seem to suffer from imposter syndrome more, and it is difficult. I mean, I come from dealing with massive clients in the events industry with really big budgets, and all of a sudden I'm on my own. But then I think, well, I'm actually building my own brand. I know my stuff. I'm educated. I have a master's in events. I have over 20 years experience. I've traveled the world setting up events. And of course, I know my stuff, and that's when you have to think and step back and think. Absolutely, you might be a smaller brand today, but everybody starts from somewhere, and that's the whole excitement about having your own business, is actually building your personal brand and doing something which matters to you and has their own value. So talking about this as conference in a little bit more detail, why do you think that conferences like that are really important?
They're really important because they're bringing a diverse group of people, and I don't just mean diversity in intersectionality and diversity of kind of, you know, gender. It's diversity of thought, it's diversity of upbringing, it's different stories to the mix, so that we can all learn from one another. And I personally I'm very tired of seeing conferences that have the same or similar types of people headlining or keynoting. Like, I've heard your story and I've heard it 1,000 times before. Your story is what I'm trying to change. And your story, you know, I want to hear the story of real people now that are doing it through different mediums. And I just think that's why it's the most important, to be honest.
Absolutely, and that's why I choose my speakers and my partners really carefully, because it's not only about having, you know, a really big company and the director of that company speaking, because they're speaking on every other panel. It's all about that lived in experience. So all the speakers that I choose to work with, or you know, are supporting me in the conference, and all my partners, you know, like yourselves, are all really at the heart of D&I, and all have that passion and have that lived in experience and that story to tell. And that's what makes my conference different, because it's not about 500 people sitting in a room listening to somebody on a stage. It's about that community feeling and that safe haven, and really networking with speakers and with the other people in the audience. And that's what makes it different from anyone else. So thank you very much for your help. Of course, really excited to have you on board. I always like to get to know the speaker, you know, in terms of their personal life. I'm going to ask you a really personal question. I said, what's your favorite food? Why?
Right now, I'm absolutely obsessed with like Korean fried rice or like chicken fried rice. So I want to say obsessed to the point where I've probably had it a few times a week, especially during this like eat out to help out scheme. There's no real reason why. I think it's just the flavors. It's spicy, it's yummy, it's full of rice and chicken. So there's nothing more to it. I think I'm just yeah, I absolutely love it.
I'll have to make yourself a white chicken and rice then.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, for sure.
Thank you so much, Sonya, and I really look forward to seeing you virtually at the conference in October. Thank you so much.
Thank you.